networks. MSNBC, 85% opinion now. 15% reporting. That must be about 4 a.m. I miss it. Fox News, 55% opinion, 45% reporting. That's about right. CNN, 46% opinion, 54% reporting. That's, I think, accurate as well. Joining us now from Washington, Charles Krauthammer. What does this study say to you, Charles?
That study tells me that the sun rises in the east. Everybody knows that MSNBC is all opinion. Even the slogan, lean forward, is just a way of saying lean left. Those short ads they do just announce that they're, basically an ideological entity. And I think what they have on CNN and Fox is basically right. Roughly half news and half opinion.
Yeah, but the perception is that Fox is all opinion and a Republican-driven network. But this study shows that, 45%, that's almost 50-50.
Well, people want to believe that because Fox has such influence that they have to say that it's nothing except opinion, but in fact it's not. You just watch it for one day. You see the Bear Show, 6 o'clock evening news. It's the best news on television, network, or cable. And that's where I would go to receive my news, even if I weren't here.
That's because you're on that show, and
Well, I'm saying, even my mother would watch it if I weren't on.
Local news. I worked it for a lot of years. I was here in New York City at WCBS TV, and we had a lot of influence back then. Now, zero in this big town, the major market, the biggest market in the country. So in LA a few weeks ago, their local news. It's about weather and traffic, and there's a little donkey on the parkway and I can't get it off. And 80% of the stories in this study, the local news, don't run more than a minute. So I think that's just evaporated.
Well, I don't have as exalted a view of what local news used to be. At least as a viewer, it seemed to me always to be 80% crime and the rest was trivia. I don't remember it ever being something that moved national opinion. What did move national opinion in those days, as today, is the network news, but now we've added cable news, of course, and the Internet. So in a sense, the TV news has lost influence simply because of the growth of the Internet as a competitor.
But it's more than that.
And the networks have lost because of the growth of cable.
Folks depend on their local news to define their local politicians. We can't do that. We can't do the state races here unless they're big profile, famous people. And now 3% of local news is politics. 3% of all the stories. So that's gone. And here's the bad thing about the disintegration of local TV news and the watering down of the network news. The network news, when I worked at ABC News in particular, there's a lot of kick-butt investigative reporting. Ryan Ross does it now. They have a few others, but it's not the way it used to be because it's too much money. It's too expensive to do it. And they don't have bureaus all over the world. Now they're getting tape from freelancers. And all of this dumbs down the American public. That's the key. People just don't know anymore.
Well, I think you're right. Part of it is that there's much less money. The other part of it is ideological. You look at the Steve Croft interview with Obama and Clinton. That's humiliating. You wouldn't have seen that on 60 Minutes back 40 years ago. That they would have been ashamed to put something on like that. I think there really is an affinity with this administration. I mean, I'm sure in the Bush years there was a lot of hard-hitting stuff because they were opposed to Bush, especially after the Iraq War went south. Then they felt all guilty. They should have done X, Y, and Z in the beginning. And they were really tough. I think there really is a difference in how hard-hitting the networks are, depending on whether there's a conservative or a liberal in office.
And I agree 100%. But I think that they call them now low-information voters are becoming the majority in this country because there isn't information out there anymore. It's very difficult to get objective information. No, not on the Internet. It's all skewed. Objective, hard-hitting, uncovering things that you don't know information, much rarer than it used to be.
Do you think the Times or the Post or the Globe or the LA Times 30 years ago was objective? What you had then was a liberal monopoly on the networks, on the major papers, on the news magazines, on the colleges and universities, on Hollywood. They had all of what Lenin would call the commanding heights of the culture. The difference is that now we have a few dissenting independent sources, Fox News, one page of the Wall Street Journal, and talk radio. And that creates an atmosphere, and the internet, where you have real ideological competition. So I think it's an advance over where we were 30, 40, 50 years ago.
All right, Charles, thanks very much as always.